Yeah. Hello everyone. Welcome to today's videos on PMBOK 7 series. Today we're going to discuss about project work performance domain, which is one of the project performance domains we are discussing. In my previous videos, we have discussed domains like stakeholder performance, team performance, development approach and lifecycle performance, and planning performance. Right? And today we're going to talk about project work performance and other domains we will discuss in upcoming videos. Right, so let's get into the details of project work performance domain. What is in it for us? What is in it for a project manager or project team member? Right, what does it address to the forum? The project work performance domain addresses the activities and functions associated with establishing a project processes, managing physical resources, and fostering a learning environment. Right, it's about the way of working and establishing processes for delivering the deliverables. Right, it can be of going with test driven development, or using sonar cube or JUnit for code reviews or code coverage, or using selenium for automation. So you figuring out the right set of processes and identifying the right set of code reviews and design reviews and review gates. Right, that's called establishing the project processes. You can use form of a kanban board. You can use many forms. And how we are going to manage the physical resources, and how we are going to build a learning environment. So all the functions associated with these three activities is being dealt in project work performance domain. Right, so what are the desired outcomes of project work performance domain? Right, so efficient and effective project performance. Right, whatever your baseline, right, in terms of completion within a schedule or within a cost, so how the project is performing at any point of time, it is one desired outcome. The processes that have been identified and is being implemented should be appropriate for the project and the environment. Right, you need to choose the project based on the domain you are in, based on the technology you are in, or based on the organization, based on the client you are doing uh, the project. Right, so most of the IT services scenario, we try to be adopting as a vendor, we try to adopt the client processes. Right, so it is the processes need to be appropriate for the project, the client, the stakeholders, and the environment. Appropriate communication with the stakeholders. Right, are you reaching your customers, are you reaching your stakeholders in an appropriate timely manner? Right, are you having a communication management plan in place in accordance with your project progress? Efficient manage of physical resources, effective management of procurements, also part of this. Improved team capacity due to the continuous learning and process improvement. Right, so this is Lean is talking about relentless improvement. Lean is also talking about continuous learning and innovation. So how is your innovation, continuous learning in terms of your explicit knowledge and tacit knowledge? How the team is growing in terms of its knowledge and skill set? That's very important for growth of the organization as well as the growth of the individual and team. Right, so these are the desired outcomes of the project work performance domain. Right, so let's look at some of the key terms this particular work performance domain is dealing about. You need to understand what is a bid document. Bid document is nothing but the proposal document or a quotation documents, or SOW documents. These are they called bid documents. What is a bidder conference is also known as the contractor conferences or vendor conferences or pre-bid conferences. Right, so the prospective seller, right, prior to the preparation of the bid and proposal, that to ensure that all the prospective vendors have a clear and common understanding of the procurement. Let's say Maruti Suzuki or Tata Motors is having having a dealer meeting and telling them that these are the clear and common understanding before going for bidding. A government can go for a bidder conference before they receive the request for proposal or request for quotation. Then explicit knowledge is nothing but the knowledge that can be codified using symbols such as words, numbers, and pictures. Right, whatever you learned in a curriculum, right, in a mathematics or in a science world, that's called explicit knowledge. Tacit knowledge comes with a personal, it's a more of personal knowledge that is, very difficult to articulate and share, such as, beliefs, experience, and insights. Right? It comes with a certain knowledge. It comes with their experience only. Right? So that is called tacit knowledge. So let's get into that. Activities related to the domains of work performance domain. Right? The project process is the first activity you might be involved in this, work performance domain. The project manager and project team establish the process for the conduct of work. How I want to conduct the work. What are the different reviews I want to do that. All right. How I want to do that. If you look at the adaptive methods, I would have, a daily stand-up meeting where everybody will come and sync up and tell what's happening on, everyone's progress, and if any bottleneck is available, share the bottlenecks so that the scrum master or a facilitator will help that remove that obstacle. Right. So that's one way of working, and then go for a iteration demo or iteration retrospectives. One way of conducting your work actually. How do you want to improve? Right? So that is depends on the predictive or adaptive methods you are using. The PM and project team can establish the process of where you want to work it. Right? The second step is the process tailoring to the optimize the process. So every project is unique. You need to go for process tailoring. Say some regulatory projects you need to go for more rigorous reviews. Right? Some smaller project you may not even review it. Some projects you need a lot of automation. Right? You can tailor your processes according to the project and environment. What are the ways in which you will optimize the process? There are three methods they're talking about. Lean production method is, value stream mapping is one of the optimizing the process. The value stream process is nothing but identifying the valued activities and non-valued activities and identifying the flow efficiency. Try to eliminate that waste. That's one way of optimizing the process. And the retrospectives or lessons learned is another way of optimizing the process. Right? In adaptive methods, you use a retrospective on every sprint or every iteration. In a predictive method, you will use the lessons learned for every milestone, right? For every phase. So where you will learn, understand what is going wrong, what is going right, and then realign your process. And what is the next best funding spend? That is help it, help the product owner get help, understanding what is the best project we can choose. Right? So this is a question. This is very important question for a project manager or a product manager to understand where we put the money for next project. Right? The next one is the functions of work performance domain. What are the different functions and activities are there? The balance in the project constraints. So as a project manager, you might know there is a fixed delivery dates, right? So schedule constraint. You have to complete the project within 3 months, 6 months. There might be a predefined budget, right? It can be of $1 million or $2 million. There may be some regulatory compliance need to be adopted, right, for the particular industry. Right? So you need to balance that project, constraints according to that. See, if one particular change is coming from stakeholder, might impose a reduction of the budget. In turn, you have to go back to a customer or stakeholder that, can we compromise on some of the quality parameters which is not necessary, or can we reduce the scope? That's how you have to balance your project constraints. The maintaining the project team focus, right? Building the project vision, communicating the business outcomes, wherever is required, having a town hall, if in adaptive method, having a sprint goal and release goal and measuring against that, actual velocity compared to planned velocity. So those things will give a lot of focus to the team. The next function is the project communication engagement. How do you want to communicate with the team members? How do you want to communicate with the stakeholders? How do you want to engage them? You can have a common repository in a wiki. You can use SharePoint, a Git repository for common code responsibilities. For communication platforms like MS Teams, you can use that. Whatever the project demands, you can implement it, right? So you can have the procurement requirements if required, and then manage accordingly, right? The managing the physical resources is very important, right? In a good project, you will have an integrated logistics system as part of the way you want to manage the physical resources. You try to eliminate the waste, unnecessary movement of logistics. You can remove it. So how do we effectively manage the physical resources? How do you effectively do the facility management? All those things come into work performance domain, right? The next option is the working with the procurement. How do you want to manage the bid process? You can go for request for information, request for proposal, or request for quote. There are multiple ways you can do the bid process, right? As a project giver, right? As a customer, you can go for a bidder conference. You can invite for suppliers, having a bidder conference, give the requirement, what is expectation, right? What is expectation, what is the product quality expected, what is the project quality expected, give all the parameters in the conference and solicit the request for proposal, right? Where you can ask how the team or how the vendor is going to implement based on your requirement, what is the cost they're going to quote. All can be solicited and you can evaluating and you can figure out one or top three vendors and then evaluate, go for contracting, right? So next step is contracting. So once you choose a one particular player for as a vendor, then you can go with the statement of work, right? So statement of work will talk about what is the scope of the project and who are the initial high level people involved in this process and the project, or it might talk about high level planning as aspect. What are the performance requirements is need that so all those regulatory standards, terms and conditions will be part of statement of work, right? And statement of work is becoming one of the project vision statement, or it is going to become a baseline document where against which you'll start measuring that the progress of each constraints like budget or schedule or whatever it is, right? And the next aspect is monitoring the new work and changes, right? How I'm going to we have a contract, we have terms and conditions, how I'm going to manage the new work and changes. If you're following the adaptive work, accepting change is very easy. You can accept the change in any sprint or any releases, whatever the time it is, right? The contract will talk about only how many people are they going to use, what is the rate actually, what is the per hour rate, that's all you talk. In a predictive method, you will talk about fixed bit, right? You go with the fixed bit kind of scenario. You need to have a change control process in place, right? Any new change or new requirement comes into the place, they'll go with the change control board, identify the impact analysis, analyze the new budget, okay, analyze the new schedule, go for get the approval, go for additional funding and re-baseline it again. So that's how it's been done. And the last aspect is the learning throughout the project. It's very very important aspect in work performance domain. How you are engaging your team as a project manager to ensure that everybody is learning continuously. Do you have a right forum, right? For example, in my company, I have been an agile coach. I'm doing heading the agile transformation. I have a community called Lean Agile Center of Excellence, where I have a number of Scrum Masters and experts that I bring together and ask for it, right? So it's how we can do the knowledge management, explicit and tacit knowledge we already discussed, right? So with that, we have come to a conclusion of this video. So finally, we will discuss that, how I'm going to check that desired outcomes, right? Let's discuss each outcome and how I'm going to check it. So how do I check the efficient, effective project performance? By status reports. So the status reports show the project work is efficient or effective, right? Status reports and performance reviews will help you out. How I'm going to check the project process are appropriate? You can do the process audit or quality assurance activity that process are related. Right? Most of the companies will have ISO standards or CMMS standards. They will do a periodic audits if things are in place. How we check the appropriate communication mediums? The availability of communication management plan and communication artifacts, and adequate communication reports are being delivered to the stakeholders, ensuring that, right? If there are any ad hoc requests of information or misunderstanding is there, that indicates that there's some communication activities are not effective. There you can go and correct actually. How I check the efficient management of physical resources? The amount of material used, scrap discarded, amount of rework indicates that how efficient you are. Right? By doing a procurement audit, that help you know how effective you are in procurement processes. How do you measure the effectiveness of handling the changes? Right? In a predictive approach, have a change log, and then being evaluated holistically with consideration of all the constraints. Have a control board, change control board, and evaluate and go with the additional funding, get an approval, and go with that. If it is an adaptive approach, have a backlog that shows that rate of accomplishing scope and rate of adding new scope. The final one is how do you becoming a learning organization. The team status report shows that few errors and rework with an increase in velocity. That's how the teams are continuously learning and the process is getting improvement. Right. So with that, we have come to a conclusion of this video. Right. We understood what are the desired outcomes of project work performance domain, and we talked about all the functions within that work performance domains like project processes. We talked about appropriate communication. We talked about physical resources, procurements. How do we handle the changes? How do we handle that tacit and expert knowledge? How do we continue to learn? How do you continue to improve in terms of processes? And how do we check as well? Right. So with that, we come to the conclusion of this video. So please let me know if you want to have any other videos in project management or agile related areas. I'll be happy to do that further videos. So I'll see you in next videos for with further other three performance domains. Okay. So thanks for your time. Bye bye.